Hey, welcome to Coding with Sam. My name's Brian.
And I'm Rory.
I'm a developer advocate here at AWS.
And I'm a software engineer on AWS Lambda.
Today, Rory is actually going to take us through building out a CI/CD pipeline with Sam and AWS Lambda. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What we're actually going to present to you today is a demo that I gave at reInvent 2016, specifically at the presentation of what's new with AWS Lambda. And what we're going to kind of solve today with this demo is the question that customers ask a lot, which is, how do I do continuous delivery, continuous integration with AWS Lambda? And we're going to show you, we made this demo to show a very simple example of it, but it can easily be extended to additional services. And we've open sourced this today, so you are able to follow along with us in this video. You can take this, download it, make changes on your own, and be able to use it any way you see fit. Cool. So let's go through the different parts of this. What do we need for this project? We've separated it into three specific components. We have the website. The website is going to be our static website hosted on S3. That's going to show us the big money business here. And we'll get to what that looks like and what we're going to do with that in a bit. But mostly what that's going to be is just to show the results of our Lambda function. The next one is our API. In our API, that is our SAM template, Lambda function API creation. That's the big heart of this project right here. Showing how you create something with all these different serverless properties in a really simple way. And the final part is the pipeline, and that's the glue that connects everything together. It has the pipeline, it has the code build, so you actually build your function, it creates your API gateway stages, all of this together inside this last component. So let's go through the website. We have the website directory. We have four main components, which we go over here. We have the index file, which is just a basic index file for your website. App.js, that's JavaScript that actually shows and displays the little Sam, which we're going to show you in a second. And here is our friend Sam. Sam is this friendly little squirrel here, and he's going to take us on a bit of adventure through this project, and we'll see more of him later.
Sam loves a good adventure.
Yeah, I know. He has a good time, that's for sure. He had a great time at reInvent, I will tell you that. And then finally, we have the website YAML, and this is a Cloudformation template that we're going to use to create this static website. So let's launch this stack.
Awesome. So what Rory's doing now is he just went ahead and clicked on the launch stack option directly from the GitHub repository, which has now taken him directly into his AWS console.
Perfect. I'm going to create my stack. I'm going to give it a quick name here. Let's call it serverless website. That's good enough.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds great, right? And we're going to go here, and we're going to click next and create this project.
So, Rory, what's happening in the background right now?
So for this one is actually really simple. This one's just going to create for you an S3 bucket and create the correct properties on the bucket so that you can basically anyone can call get on the objects inside the bucket. Just like the standard way you would create a S3 static website. Once we get to the pipeline, we'll be seeing more complicated logic where that does more of creating roles and permissions and also different stages of a pipeline. But for this one, it literally is just creating an S3 bucket and some permissions on it.
Great.
So we're done.
And we'll go ahead and link to some other articles on creating static S3 websites for people who aren't fully aware of how those work. But for now, we'll go ahead and move on to the next step.
Yeah. So afterwards, we have this website here. We can take a look at the stack that was created. We actually have, if we go to the outputs as part of this, where are we? Here we are. One of them is the website URL. And we're going to take this website URL. And if we go to that in our browser, we can see right now there's nothing. We haven't put anything to the bucket, but it's created, it's running. But as I said, there's nothing there.
So this shows us at this point that the S3 bucket exists,
Correct.
But there's no content, so we're getting a 404.
So we have to make that part. All right.
All
Let's do that. So the next step is there's a script called uploadwebsite.sh that's inside this repository. You just run this, and you pass in the bucket name, which is what was created, and it will upload all the content. And when you refresh the page, you will see. Let's see what we see. I don't want to spoil it.
Let's see what happens.
All right,
Go ahead and show me.
So we're going to go into my repo here, And as I show you here, there's a file called upload website.
And hopefully you already remembered what he named his S3 bucket.
I did not. You, whoops. Don't worry, I have it just over here, so I'm not too far away.
So this is what's useful about the Cloudformation stack. We have these output variables, and we can go back and go ahead and get the bucket name.
Exactly. So I have that. I have my sh upload websites, run the script. This is going to upload all the files into there. And if I go back to that website that was previously not found, we should see Sam floating around.
He is enjoying
He's having a great
trip
time.
through space.
He's having a great time.
Is that space, or where
This
is he?
Purple space.
Purple space.
Purple space.
It's like
very
underneath-
different than
it's like
regular
subspace?
space. Yeah, it's like subspace. Yeah, you know, there's different colors of space.
Yeah.
The one you see is like dark space. This
It's
is
like
purple
visible
space.
light versus invisible light.
Exactly. So Sam's just gonna float around. Right now, he's pretty lonely. This is what was happening at re:Invent. He was there. He was having a good time, but he was all alone. And the point of this project is to give Sam some friends. He likes to party. He
Yep.
was at re:Invent, and you just need to make him have a better time.
Let's show them how to do that.
Let's show you guys how to do that. So step 2, the API. The API is, as I said, kind of the heart of what we're trying to show here. It has the SAM function defined with our SAML.yaml. This is essentially a SAM template file that is used to create our API gateway resource and our Lambda function, and hook them up together so that API gateway, when you call that endpoint, invokes your function for you. We have this package.json because I'm using Node.js 4.3 for my language here. We're using that to define which packages I need built into my my Lambda function. We got my index.js, which is my actual Lambda function code. I have a build spec file, and this is used by CodeBuild to actually tell it what steps to run inside the building stage. And then this beta.json is specifically, basically it's a CloudFormation staging file. So we're using this to say, in the beta stage of my pipeline, input these parameters into my CloudFormation template.
So at the end of this pipeline, Rory will go ahead and show you specifically what the actual Lambda function's doing. But for now, he's going to continue walking through the actual process of getting this built out.
I'm going to take a quick moment. I'm not sure if this is important to the podcast, but it got really dark in this room really quickly.
Yes, all of a sudden the lights turned out, and Rory and I are sitting in complete darkness.
I am lounging very comfortably, but
and
I feel
Brian is sitting on the floor trying to find the light switch.
All right, so as Brian tries to find the light switch, let's go and take a look what we need to do. So we have these files. It's already in the app directory. If you want to take a look at what it's doing specifically, I recommend going to the README and going to these files and seeing what's going on. But we're going to actually create a new GitHub repo, place the files from this API directory into that repo, and we'll be using that repo in a little bit. So let's do those steps. So we're going to go to the top. I'm just in GitHub. I'm going to create a new repository. I'm going to call this repository serverless SAM. And then we're going to go and create this repository. So, all done. I now have I can get clone, do all sorts of fun stuff with this.
So now you have a brand new empty GitHub repository.
And this can also be done in code commit or any other private GitHub repository.
Yeah, it's very true. So you know what? I'm just going to use this here, this create a new repository on the command line. So we're going to do this here. I'm going to go out of my original directory, create one called serverless SAM. Oh. There we go.
Too many serverless programs.
Too serverless. Too serverless.
No such thing.
No such thing. So I'm going to run all these commands it gave me. It's going to pull it down. And here I am. I got a little README. I already pushed those changes. If I refresh this page, it's going to be there.
Great.
And now I'm going to add the API directory files to here. So we're going to copy. We're going to go to AWS API, and we're going to pass them to serverless SAM. So we can see here we've had the directory. If we go and list the files in that directory, we can see they're all there still. So let's go, and actually we're going to need to add these first. Let's commit these changes. All right, so now let's actually push these files.
So Rory's pushing these files up to his new GitHub repository.
You didn't have to say it like that. You could have said that a little bit more friendly, just so we're clear. And now if we look at my repo, we can see that I have all of the files. I have the beta.json, the build spec, my Lambda function, my SAML.yaml, everything I need for this function.
And this is all I need to get my serverless SAM application running based off of the code.
Correct.
Awesome.
Okay, so next things next. Let's go to our old pipeline, our old friendly pipeline. So what is this pipeline going to do? As Brian aptly pointed out, this is also step 3. And yes, this is step 3, Brian. Thank you for reminding me. The pipeline is going to have a whole bunch of components. I have them listed here. I'll go over them in a second. But it's essentially going to be the part that glues your application and your development and your testing all together. So we're going to have an S3 bucket that basically is used by CodePipeline to store and pass around your deployment artifacts. We have code build, which will actually take your code, run your build commands on your repo, and give you an output. The next part is code pipeline, which, as I said, which is the part that brings it all together. And then there's a bunch of IAM roles and policies that we need to make this all happen behind the scenes. So let's go ahead and create this pipeline. What do you think, Brian? I could use a bit more enthusiasm. Someone, you're having all these podcasts, screencasts, gonna need some more enthusiasm out of you for me to click this button.
I'm trying. Go ahead and click that button for me.
All right, I'll click this button. So we're going to go here. Same screen as before when we were doing the static website.
This is the Cloudformation Create Stack screen.
That is correct. And we go here, click Next. It gives us all of these wonderful parameters that we can fill in. And basically we're going to create this stack for us. So let's give it a name. We're going to call this the serverless pipeline. What should our application name be, Brian?
SAM around the world.
SAM around the world. That's beautiful.
Thank you. I do have a minor in creativity.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. The next part we need to put is our GitHub repo name, which is, in my case, serverless SAM. And my GitHub token. So this is the Oauth token you need from GitHub. I'm going to grab one right now. You need it to have, essentially, be able to read these repos. And we're going to use that. So I'm going to go to mine. You go to github.com/settings/tokens. I'm going to generate a new token. Going to call it, let's call it serverless. Easy enough to remember. And I need the repo hook. I'm going to generate a token. You can see my token right now, but don't think you can use this token because I'm definitely revoking it as soon as this is done. I'm looking at you, Brian.
He might forget.
I trust the people listening, but I don't trust Brian.
I'm already using it right now on my other computer.
All right, so we're going to keep going here. I put in my token. I'm going to click Next. I'm going to go through the screens here telling me everything I need to know about what I'm creating. I'm going to acknowledge that IAM wants to create IAM resources because I definitely wanted to. And let's click that Create button. Now, just like we had for the serverless website, we're going to see this pipeline being built for us. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, so at this point, Rory's sitting on the CloudFormation screen, and we are waiting for his stack to finish creating. Mm-hmm. If Rory goes and clicks on one of those stacks, we can actually see the events that are happening.
So in this stack, this is the master stack. It's going to create, first, the roles you need to do all the pipeline funny business that we talked about. And then the second stack is going to be the actual pipeline resources.
Great.
So if we go into here,
There we go.
oh, it's already done. That's why.
Rory had his filters turned on.
So if we go into here, we can see it's building the role specific for CloudFormation, code build, code pipeline, and it's adding these policies over here. So everything we need for our pipeline.
And this stack is relatively small, so the time to create should be pretty quick.
Like we're essentially done already.
Yep.
It's just this last one just has to wrap everything up. But if I now go to code pipeline, I can see that here's my SAM around the world pipeline.
Ooh.
I know. Careful, Brian. This is a very small room. I can only go so far away from you.
Is the SAM actually going to go all the way around the world?
Let's find out. I don't know. It's not what it's supposed to do, so maybe. So the first thing it's doing is you can see here at the top, I'm going to circle this with my mouse, is it has successfully hooked up to my GitHub repo. It has noticed that there is new code in it, looking at the latest commit. The next step it's going to do is take this code, it's going to run my build step, which I've defined. I've, in our code pipeline creation, I told it a build container type to use because this is a Node.js application. I'm using a Node build container and it has npm installed to pull down my packages. We're going to run this. It's going to create my build artifact, which we'll then use in the later parts here in the deploy stage where we'll be using CloudFormation to create a change set and execute this change set.
Awesome.
So we'll see as we go through this, we're going to create our API gateway stages, hook it up with Lambda, do all sorts of awesome stuff.
Great.
Yeah. So while this is happening, I think what will be really interesting to see if we go back to my pipeline or the code itself is what is happening in the API and what is happening in this build spec.
Yeah.
So this is all my build spec does. I have some environment variables here, and these are related to, you can just have input that you put and define here. What we are using is we have two commands that I'm running, and we're going to run npm install, and that will take my, just a regular npm install, look at my package.json file, see what requirements I need, and then download those files from an npm repo, put them in the node modules path, and kind of do everything it needs to do, just as like it would in your own computer. And the next step is this CloudFormation package, which is that new command that we released with SAM that takes your saml.yaml, which is what I aptly call my SAM template. It just rings off the tongue, Brian.
It does.
The
It's
SAML
very,
YAML.
it's very eloquent.
Thank you. I am a poet in a previous life.
Ah, yes.
So it takes your SAML YAML, your SAM template, an S3 bucket where it will store the result, and it outputs you give it an output file. So I've told it to give my post SAML YAML because
Okay.
it's post. It's
Yes.
not SAM anymore. It's
Yeah.
CloudFormation.
Yeah.
That's what SAM does.
Yeah.
And then in my artifacts, I'm telling it to pass out this post SAML YAML and this beta.json. And what behind the scenes this will do is it will take my little SAM template, it will expand it out into a CloudFormation, valid CloudFormation, and essentially be passed to the next stage where it will be run with the create change set and the execute change set.
Cool.
So let's go back to my pipeline. So looks like we got some building going on here. So if we go into the build step, we can see that it succeeded. And we can even see the logs here.
That's super handy.
As we can see here, right now we can see that it's running this step that I was telling you about, is uploading the build artifact, and it's going to run execute the following command. It tells you it succeeded. It gives you any error information. Oh, you can even see that npm is warning me about a specific file. Or I was missing my license file on my package.json. I'm sorry, Brian.
Rory, what did we do?
I'm sorry. Well, next time I'll get it for sure. So now that's done, it's going to do the next step right here, the create change set. This is just a standard CloudFormation create change set, execute change set.
So this is going to
Dynamic
deploy your
duo.
actual Lambda function in your API gateway?
That is correct.
great.
That is correct. So we'll see that happening in a minute.
And if we jump over to the CloudFormation window,
Yeah, sure. Why not? Let's go to it. So here's our change set.
and it's already complete.
Already complete. We have the different API stages. We have the different permissions and roles that it needs. Like everything you would need to have a good time with CloudFormation.
Perfect.
Yeah. So let's go back to here. We can see it succeeded the create change sets. The next thing that's going to happen is we're going to run the next step of the deploy, which is the execute change set. That should take not too much time. And in fact, we can probably even go right now to API Gateway. In fact, we cannot go yet to API Gateway. It will take a second to do this part of it.
As with all demos, sometimes things take a little bit longer than they should.
Oh, look, if I just waited a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So this is the stack that it created. We can see here it's creating the different resources. So it's creating this role for me. It's creating the function. It is creating the API. And now it's creating the different deployment steps for that. So while that's running, what I will do now is I will go over to Lambda.
Like how you took advantage of the nice new filter option.
It's very easy to get around.
Yeah.
Find things when I just remember what it's called.
Yeah.
Easier to then parse everything.
Hopefully you don't forget what Lambda's called.
Hopefully not. And so here we are. Here is my function. Here's what I had basically used my code pipeline to deploy and run through. It's everything that is I had defined previously. I have my environment variables that I had shown you before. And we pass those in for a SAM multiplier, which you can find out more details of what that does in the code.
And CodePipeline did all this for you. You never went into the Lambda console. You
Nope.
never used the Lambda CLI.
Nope.
It just took your code straight from GitHub and automatically deployed it to Lambda and API Gateway for you.
When you say it like that, it kind of sounds like magic, Brian. Kind of sounds like magic.
We sprinkle a little bit of magic on top of things, and it makes them better.
And now you learn the secret sauce of how Lambda and API Gateway work together. We just sprinkle dust, magic dust, all over the place, and we get these great features. It's amazing. So let's go to my SAM Around the World server, which is what we were talking about before. Let's find an endpoint. Let's find an actual endpoint for us to use. So we're just going to use the prod endpoint. This should be all I need. Just invoke this. If I go to this URL, and that is exactly one. We did it. That's it.
We have
we
one
fixed
SAM.
it. We're so good at this.
Awesome.
So this is not. So just so we're clear, this isn't everything. This shows us that it's working.
We're not done.
We're not done.
This isn't it.
It looks good. Sure, it looks good, but we'll
But
get
we've
there.
confirmed at this point that API Gateway is successfully talking to your Lambda function.
API Gateway is talking to your Lambda function. All of this was done without us going to any of the consoles besides CloudFormation. We had our code in our own repo. It connected it, read the changes, and we're going to see in a second us updating these functions so that when we make a change, we're going to see it deployed.
Perfect.
And that's awesome.
And the output will be something fun and exciting, hopefully.
Fun and exciting. Fun and exciting. All right, so there's one last thing we need to do here for our environment variables. You can see here where we want to allow cores, essentially, for our function. And we have a definition of it and explain what is going on inside here, inside our application as well. So we're just going to take the URL from our S3 bucket, Sam's friendly farm, and we're going to set that as the environment variable over here so that our website can call it. Super simple.
Great.
Great.
How do you like those new environment variables?
Oh man, so good, so good. They definitely worked really hard to get this out, and it turned out really well. So, and honestly, like this, when I was at reInvent in December, environment variables were probably one of the things the customers were so excited about the most.
Yeah.
We had just released it probably about
Yep.
2-3 weeks
Yep.
prior to that. So there was a lot of excitement around that. I'm still excited about it, to be honest. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to update that function, right,
All right.
Brian? So let's go to our other repo, the one that we had
created earlier.
before. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to go to my repo, and I'm going to go to my index.js file. So we're going to make a change to this here. And the main change we're going to do is we're going to change this var sam counts.
What is that var doing?
That is an excellent question, Brian. I have no idea. No, I do. I wrote this. So what this does is, if we go back to our SAM website here.
Yep.
Sam's all alone.
There's one of them.
There's no one there beside me.
I'm guessing that
He's all alone. There's no one.
Is the number of Sams we see on the
You're
screen?
right. You're right. Yeah, that's right.
Did I spoil the ending?
You did. So we're gonna edit this inside GitHub, make it easier. Let's turn it up.
Let's do 15.
15. All right.
A lot of Sams.
If this is too many Sams, oh my God. Let's commit these changes. Make 15 Sams appear.
Perfect.
So now what we're going to do, we committed this change. So what should happen? If you were thinking of...
Go check the code pipeline.
Oh, that's a good idea, Brian. Let's go check our code pipeline. Because if we think back to what we talked about before, code pipeline is already talking about GitHub repository.
Yep.
You should pick up this change. Say, this looks different. Something about this is different.
And there we go.
And there we go. It's picking up a change. It's nice that. We'll see the steps around it going in a second.
So if we drop back to Sam floating around.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit more about why the continuous deployment is useful for this type of situation.
Let's do that. But give me one more second, and then we'll get to that. There's one last thing we need to change here, and it's only minor. And the reason we're changing this, so if we go to the website, and specifically the app.js file, this is the file that updates the number of SAMs you see on the screen. And this line right here is where we need to put that URL that we created for the API gateway. So that's the only place inside this file we need to change. So we're going to make a change and do that upload website.
We're going to run
that exact same script you ran before.
Static site back to S3.
That is correct. So let's quickly do that change. We're going to go into Vim.
And you're just going to put your API gateway URL in there, correct?
That is correct. And I'm going to try and not embarrass myself with my Vim foo here. Awesome. So I got insert API gateway URL here. I'm going to go back to, because I've completely forgotten what my endpoint is.
No.
I know you told me, Brian, never forget.
Never forget.
And I definitely forgot. So let's go to API gateway. Go to my SAM Around the World demo. Go to my prod stage. Get this fantastic URL.
Perfect.
Update here. I'm going to go all the way to that, change that.
Boom.
Did I impress you, Brian, with my
You
shampoo?
did. Nice Vim.
Oh, thank God. I was very nervous there. All right, so the next step is we're just going to run the same thing we did before, right? So I actually have that in my history. The sh upload. So that way I don't have to remember that bucket, because I also forgot that bucket name. So it's uploaded. We can even, if we refresh the page, it should look the same, it should function the same, but in the background, it is now calling our API.
And how can we verify that?
So we can either wait for the pipeline to deploy.
Mm-hmm.
The other option is we can go, if we want to get really technical, we can inspect it.
Why don't we just see where the pipeline's at?
Let's take a look at the pipeline. So I think you actually asked a question before, Brian. Do you mind re-asking that question?
I did. The question that I asked was, why is continuous deployment useful in a situation like this?
Oh, what a trick question. No. Continuous deployment is important in these, just in general, because it makes you be able to iterate faster, right? You can make changes, you can kind of work on concepts and ideas, and you can see them and like test them really fast. And that's the main thing behind this. You don't have to do manual deployments. You are safe in what you do, and you have a process that makes the automation better. And there goes the lights again.
And now
oh my God.
Rory and
And
Brian
now that
are
it's-
sitting in the dark.
And now that it's dark out again, let us talk again. How does CI/CD make you feel, Brian?
Well, I would feel better about it if we had better continuous integration for the light's motion detection in this room.
Unfortunately, that's not hooked up to any of these things.
No.
So yeah, back to why it's important. It allows you to be more agile. It makes it so that you have a pattern that everyone is able to do consistently, and you know that if you follow this pattern, you'll be able to get good code out there and make changes quickly.
Where are we at right now in our current code pipeline?
We're just about to execute that change set.
Oh.
Oh my goodness.
So,
oh my gracious. So we should go right back to this page because we don't want to miss it changing.
That's going to change dynamically for us, huh? How
That's
often
the
is
plan.
it checking that endpoint today? I didn't pay attention to your code.
Some period of seconds.
Something greater than 1. And
Something greater than 1,
and
less
than
than
60.
Yeah, it's about 10 seconds, I
Okay.
think.
So
between
roughly every
switch.
10, we'll just assume that it says 10 seconds.
Sure.
Roughly every 10 seconds, it's hitting your API gateway endpoint, which is hitting your Lambda function and returning a number. In this situation, currently it's 1, because we see 1 lovely Sam in purple space.
Just the loveliest of Sams.
Loveliest of Sams. And pretty sure, hopefully soon, Sam should have friends.
Yes, you should. So if we go here, we're just now doing our execute change set. We can see, you should be able to see the execute details in a second if you want to open it up. Let's take a look while that runs. We can see here, it's still, we're doing the change set. We did the creating. We should be good. So let's go back to our pipeline here. It has succeeded. We should see the change in a second. And what is definitely the first time I'm doing this, if we watch the screen now, we will see Sam have some friends pop up. Hey,
Multiple
right?
Sams.
I'm not going to count because I actually technically can't count, but there's probably 15
Does that
here.
make it harder to be an engineer?
It makes it a problem for sure. Thankfully, I don't deal with anything physical.
Do you use an
I
abacus?
really, I do not.
Okay.
Thankfully, all I do is I stand at a computer and I slap the keyboard for a while,
No.
hoping something comes out. Usually, it's weird squirrels.
So at this point,
Like 80% of the time.
So at this point, we went through all 3 steps in the GitHub repository, which were creating 2 stacks,
Yep.
creating our own repository, pushing our SAM code, which in this term is actual SAM code because we're seeing SAMs on the screen.
Sam, I told
Yes.
you.
So we've pushed that code to a repository. The code pipeline has detected that change in the repository, pulled it down, run a build process in code build, done an npm install, installed any modules, uploaded the function to Lambda, and created your API gateway. And then we've pushed a final change to change the number of squirrels from 1 to 15, hopefully.
That's a pretty
15.
good recap. It sounds like you were paying attention, Brian.
Yes.
Now, there's
With
one
the
more
lights off.
thing. There's one more thing that I would like to show you.
Okay.
And this is a little surprise.
Oh.
So remember that SAM multiplier I told you about?
Yeah,
I kind of
absolutely.
hinted at earlier?
Yeah.
Let's really turn this up.
Oh, environment variables.
Let's see what happens when I make this 100. What do you
So
think,
instead
Scott?
of pushing a change to GitHub, we're going to change the environment variable this time.
Yes. So we're going to mimic more of what you would do in kind of like an operational configuration way. You wouldn't. This is something you would use maybe for defining like a region or something you have in a configuration file. But for this example, I'm going to use this to turn up the party.
Okay, perfect. Let's see what happens.
So let's go back here. We've saved it.
Oh my gosh.
And now
Oh my gosh.
it's getting a little
Oh my
crazy.
God.
We're gonna. This is gonna. I think
They're
this
gonna-
might actually crash our computer.
I think this is what happens with scrolls in real life.
Something like this, and this reminds me a lot of reInvent.
Trying
that's a
to walk down the hallways?
Yeah, basically, yes.
That's amazing. And then if you go back and change the multiplier,
What do you want me to change it to?
just 1.
Sure. Change that to 1. Let's bring this under control. This is like the Sunday or the Friday of reInvent after the party.
Yes.
Where people
Are
were
slowly
like
meandering
leaving and
back to the
meandering
room.
around and disappearing.
Yeah.
So we'll see this starting to essentially And there we go, 15 little Sammys.
Awesome, that looks great. Can you go ahead and recap what you've done for us today so far, Rory?
Sure thing, Brian. We have our Lambda function and API gateway defined inside our code repository. We have CodePipeline and CodeBuild to take that and deploy and build changes. We have Cloudformation to actually create the resources and deploy the code changes. And we have our static website on S3, which has our fantastic little SAM squirrels.
Awesome. Thanks for taking the time today to show us that great CI/CD demo, Rory.
Thanks for having me, Brian.